There's a strange kind of pain most people carry, and you've probably felt it. That sense of chasing after what seems just out of reach. A text you wish would come, a bill that weighs on you, a dream that feels like it's always on the horizon, but never in your hands. And the more you reach for it, the more it slips away. It feels unfair, right? You're working hard, you're thinking positive, you're trying to stay focused, but the result doesn't show. Somewhere inside, you start to whisper the question that stings the most. What am I doing wrong? Here's the twist. You're not doing something wrong. You're doing something too complicated. The truth of how reality shifts, the actual mechanics of manifestation, is so disarmingly simple that the human mind almost refuses to accept it. It doesn't look like hustle. It doesn't look like pushing. It doesn't look like mental gymnastics. It looks like tuning. Think of reality like a giant field of radio stations, each one playing a different timeline, a different possibility. When you're locked in stress, fear, or lack, you're tuned to one frequency. When you settle into coherence, safety, and embodiment, you slip onto another. And here's the wild part. The shift happens in the body, not the mind. But because we've been trained to worship struggle, the idea that you can tune into a new reality with subtlety, with presence, feels impossible. We ask, how can it be that easy? Yet quantum creation is exactly that. Simple, not complicated. Precise, not forceful. But to live it, you need to unlearn the noise. And that's what we're about to do together. The first thing we have to untangle is this. Manifestation isn't about thinking harder. It's about observing differently. When physicists talk about the observer effect, they're pointing to something baffling. Particles don't show up in a fixed form until they're observed. Before that, they exist as possibilities, a cloud of maybes. Observation collapses them into something specific. Now, in your life, this doesn't mean staring at your vision board until it magically materializes. It means the quality of your embodied observation determines which version of reality solidifies around you. Here's where the metaphor of the radio becomes essential. Imagine you're holding an old-school radio with a dial. Every timeline, every possibility is already broadcasting. The wealth you desire, the relationship you crave, the health you imagine, it's not in the future, it's on a different frequency right now. The dial is your state of being. But here's the catch. You can't just yell at the radio to play a new song. You can't willpower it or demand it or bargain with it. You have to gently, steadily turn the dial. That dial is your nervous system, your emotional coherence, the way your body is actually vibrating in this moment. So when people say manifestation doesn't work, it's usually because they're trying to tune the radio with their thoughts alone, while their body is blasting static. They're saying affirmations, but underneath there's tension, fear, or resistance. That tension is the signal. The field responds to what's embodied, not what's spoken. Think about this. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the mood without a word being said? That's the frequency broadcast in real time. The universe is no different. And here's where the human mind protests. But it can't be that straightforward. Surely I need to visualize harder, push more, earn it somehow. That's the addiction to effort. It blinds us to the real lever. Quantum creation bypasses that trap. It's not about stacking more techniques. It's about precision, sliding into the frequency that already holds what you're asking for. And once you're there, reality doesn't need to be forced. It starts to echo back automatically, the way a radio speaker sings when you've hit the exact station. Now, the question that always follows is, if it's this simple, why doesn't everyone live this way? Why don't we see results instantly, the moment we decide? The answer is hidden in a myth almost everyone believes. And that's where we go next. One of the most stubborn myths in manifestation is this. If I just think positively enough, everything will change. It sounds logical. If your thoughts shape reality, then controlling your thoughts should bend the world. But here's the hidden flaw. Your conscious thoughts are only a sliver of your signal. What really broadcasts into the quantum field is what you embody. Your nervous system, your posture, the micro expressions on your face, these are transmitting louder than the sentence looping in your head. Let's drop this into a real moment. Imagine you're waiting for a text back. Maybe it's from someone you care about. Maybe it's about an opportunity. You tell yourself, it's fine, I'm relaxed. They'll reply. But your body tells the truth. Your stomach is tight. Your eyes check the screen every 2 minutes. There's a restless edge in your chest. That embodied frequency, lack, uncertainty, grasping, is what you're tuned to. The radio isn't picking up your surface thought, it's playing your underlying station. So when nothing shows up, or when the reply comes delayed and off tone, it's not the universe punishing you. It's coherence at work. The field reflects what's stable, not what's forced. This is why positive thinking alone often feels like gaslighting yourself. You're telling the mind one thing while the body is screaming another. And in that split, the body wins. The broadcast gets scrambled. Here's the liberating truth. You don't need to bully your thoughts into being endlessly positive. You need to shift your station. That means dropping from the head into the body, letting the nervous system find safety, and allowing the frequency to stabilize there. Once that happens, your thoughts naturally align because they're downstream of your state. Think of it like tuning the radio slightly off station. If the dial is even a fraction misaligned, all you hear is static. That static is the gap between what you're saying and what you're embodying. When you line them up, the music comes through effortlessly. So the myth dies here. It was never about thinking harder. It was always about coherence. And yet, even with this understanding, most people struggle to hold the signal. Why? Because the body resists when it doesn't feel safe. The nervous system pulls you back into old frequencies even when you know better. That's where we need to go next. The hidden gatekeeper between your intention and your reality. Here's the part almost no one tells you. Your nervous system decides what you can hold. Not your vision board. Not your affirmations. Not even your willpower. If your body doesn't feel safe having something, it will reject it, no matter how much your mind wants it. Safety is the real dial. Without it, you slip back into static. Think about this. You might say you want financial ease, but if every time a bill arrives, your chest tightens and your breath shortens, your body is broadcasting stress. The nervous system is coded to survive, not to dream. Unless you bring it into coherence, it will keep replaying the same frequency of urgency and lack. This is why the first shift isn't about believing harder. It's about regulating your system so it can hold a new signal. When your body relaxes, the field listens differently. You're no longer screaming over static. You're humming in tune with what you're calling in. Let's try something right now. A practice you can use anywhere. Pause for a moment. Notice your breath without changing it. Just feel it. Then bring your hand to your chest, lightly. Close your eyes if you can. Imagine breathing directly into that spot, slow and steady, as if each inhale fills your chest with calm and each exhale softens the edges of your body. Now, bring to mind one memory. Not a huge achievement, just a small, genuine moment where you felt safe, at ease, even for a second. Maybe it was laughing with a friend, sitting in sunlight, or hearing a song that made you melt. Let your body feel that memory, as if it's happening right now. Do this for 30 seconds. That's all. Notice how your system softens. Notice how the edges of urgency blur. That's coherence beginning to form. In that state, your signal becomes clearer, stronger, magnetic. This is the foundation. Without safety, no amount of visualization will stick. With safety, your whole system opens to new stations. It's not about adding more effort. It's about allowing resonance to settle. And here's the breakthrough. When you anchor safety first, your desires stop feeling like battles. They feel like inevitabilities. The field can finally recognize and reflect them. But coherence is only the beginning. Because even if you find safety, you can't stop at temporary states. Otherwise, the moment life shakes you, the station shifts again. Which brings us to the deeper shift, moving from states to identity. Safety cracks the door open, but here's the trap. If you treat coherence as a temporary trick, the old station always pulls you back. You meditate, you regulate, you feel calm for 10 minutes, and then the phone buzzes, the bill arrives, the boss emails, and suddenly you're tuned back to the old static. This is why the shift has to go deeper than state. States are fleeting. Identity is stable. Think of it like wearing a costume. You can put on the clothes of confidence for a few hours, but unless you actually become the one who lives in that energy, you'll always feel like you're faking it. The field doesn't respond to masks. It responds to what's most consistent. Here's the key. Identity is just the station you've practiced the longest. If you've rehearsed scarcity for years, your nervous system thinks that's who you are. If you've rehearsed doubt, your body carries it as normal. The shift isn't about performing a new role. It's about embodying a new baseline. So instead of asking, how do I hold this state? The real question is, who am I becoming in this frequency? Because once it locks into identity, the body stops resisting. The new signal isn't something you visit, it's where you live. Imagine someone training for a marathon. At first, running feels like a stretch, a borrowed state. But after months of practice, the body adapts. Running stops being something they do. It becomes who they are. Their resting baseline changes. Manifestation works the same way. You're training your system into a new identity. That's when the field takes you seriously, because you're no longer tuning in and out, you're holding the frequency without effort. Here's the kicker. Most people never cross this line. They chase better states without realizing that states are fragile. The moment life tests them, they collapse back into the old identity. But when identity shifts, reality has no choice but to reorganize. Why? Because you're no longer broadcasting a desire, you're broadcasting a self. The station has changed permanently. And this is where things start to bend in wild directions. Because once identity shifts, you're no longer locked to one version of reality. You're standing at the intersection of timelines, and your signal decides which one opens. The question is, how do you actually access those parallel stations? When you lock into identity, something extraordinary happens. Timelines begin to rearrange. Here's what I mean. Every version of you already exists. Successful you, struggling you, joyful you, burned out you. Each one is like a radio station, broadcasting a full reality. The signal you embody is what determines which one you tune into. Think about walking into a job interview. If your identity is secretly, "I'm unqualified, they won't take me seriously," then no matter how polished your answers are, your energy leaks doubt. The interviewer might not know why, but they feel the static. You're aligned with the timeline where rejection plays out. Now flip it. If your identity is, "I'm the kind of person who belongs here," your presence shifts. The words don't even matter as much. The field tunes you to the station where doors open, and people mirror back that confidence. This is why identity is more powerful than effort. Timelines respond to resonance, not pleading. You're not begging the universe for a new outcome. You're broadcasting the version of you that already lives in that outcome. Here's the liberating part. You don't have to create these timelines from scratch. They already exist like radio frequencies humming around you. You don't invent success. You don't build love from zero. You tune into the identity that matches, and reality reorganizes to match the signal. But, and this is crucial, the body must agree. If you mentally claim a new identity but your nervous system is stuck in the old one, the field stays scrambled. That's why the work isn't about shouting affirmations. It's about gently teaching your body. This is safe. This is normal. This is me now. Let's ground this in a scenario. Imagine someone who struggled with money pressure for years. Their identity is, "I'm always behind." So even when a bit of extra cash comes in, their body immediately tenses. It's not enough, it won't last. That identity keeps tuning them back to the station of scarcity. But if they rehearse a new identity, "I'm someone who always finds stability," and embody it until their nervous system feels safe there, the field responds differently. Unexpected opportunities line up, synchronicities appear, resources flow. Not because they worked harder, but because they switched stations. Identity is the dial that locks the frequency, and once it clicks, timelines collapse. The future you thought was far away suddenly feels inevitable. The question is, how do you actually train your system into this new identity without falling back into old patterns? That's where tools and rehearsal come in. So how do you actually rehearse a new identity until it locks in? Because knowing it's possible isn't enough. You need tools to make it real in your body. Think of this like training your radio dial. At first, it drifts. Static seeps in. But with practice, the station sharpens. Each rehearsal strengthens the signal until it becomes automatic. Here are 4 tools I use, simple but powerful, to bridge that gap. 1. Bridge statements. Instead of leaping into affirmations your body doesn't believe, use gentle bridges. For example, if your old identity is, "I'm always behind," don't force, "I'm wealthy beyond measure." Your system will reject it. Instead, try, "I'm beginning to see moments of stability. I'm opening to the idea that things can support me." These small bridges are believable, and belief is what anchors the frequency. 2. Somatic anchors. Choose one physical gesture that your body associates with the new identity. Maybe it's pressing your hand to your heart, standing tall, or taking a slow breath while smiling slightly. Each time you do it, you're teaching your nervous system, "This is who I am now." Over time, the anchor becomes a shortcut into the new station. 3. Embodiment drills. Take 5 minutes a day to literally move as the version of you who already lives in that identity. Walk across the room as them. Speak one line as them. Notice the micro shifts in posture, tone, breath. This isn't play acting, it's training your body into coherence with the new signal. 4. Timeline rehearsal. Close your eyes and see a scene from the timeline you're calling in, but instead of focusing on the outcome, focus on being you in that scene. How do you breathe? How do you carry yourself? What do your shoulders feel like? The point isn't to visualize results, it's to embody identity. Put these together, and you have a protocol. Bridge the thought, anchor it somatically, embody it in movement, and rehearse it in imagination. Do this daily, and the signal stabilizes. The old identity starts to fade because your system no longer feeds it with attention. This is the work most people skip. They stay in their head. But once your body learns the new identity, reality has no choice but to match it. That's when manifestation stops being fragile and starts being inevitable. And I'll ask you something here, because your story might be the exact bridge someone else needs. Have you noticed the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. But of course, even with tools, there are traps. 3 in particular that quietly pull people off the station. And unless you see them, they'll keep scrambling your signal. Even with practice, there are 3 big traps that pull almost everyone back into static. And if you don't see them clearly, they'll sneak in and scramble your signal before you even realize what happened. The first is urgency. Urgency feels like power because it's intense. The racing thoughts, the knot in your stomach, the constant checking of your phone, it tricks you into thinking you're doing something. But urgency is actually a different station. It's tuned to lack, to it's not here yet. So the more urgent you feel, the more you reinforce the reality where what you want stays out of reach. The way through isn't to fight urgency with more force. It's to slow your breath, widen your awareness, and remind your body, I can afford to relax here. That pause is the reset. The second trap is split signals. This happens when part of you is saying yes, but another part is saying no. You might affirm, I want abundance, but another layer inside whispers, but money isn't safe. Or you long for connection, but a hidden wound still fears intimacy. These fractures send mixed broadcasts, and the field reflects the confusion. The key isn't to shame the no, it's to listen to it, integrate it, and gently teach your system that the new identity is safe. Think of it like tuning forks. If one fork is vibrating off, it muddies the harmony. Alignment means bringing every part into resonance. The third trap is over-control. This is the temptation to micromanage the how and when of manifestation. You start trying to grip reality, bending it on your timeline, demanding proof. But over-control broadcasts mistrust. It's like trying to hold the radio antenna in place with white knuckles. It only makes the signal weaker. The practice here is surrender, not as passivity, but as precision. You align the station, then let the music play without needing to strangle it. Each of these traps, urgency, split signals, over-control, comes from the same root, fear that the field won't respond unless you push. But the paradox is, pushing is the very static that keeps you out of alignment. So the work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about catching when you've slipped into one of these traps and gently retuning. Urgency softens with breath. Split signals dissolve with compassion. Over-control melts with trust. And once you learn to spot them, daily life itself becomes your practice ground. Every conversation, every step, every bite of food is a chance to embody coherence. Which brings us to the most overlooked part of manifestation, integration. Because the real question is, how do you carry this frequency not just in rituals, but in the ordinary moments of your day? The breakthroughs don't land in the meditation cushion alone. They land in the tiny, ordinary moments of your day. That's where the field is really listening. Walking down the street, are you tuned to scarcity, eyes scanning for what's missing? Or are you walking as the version of you who belongs in abundance? Eating a meal, are you rushing through it, body tense, tuned to urgency? Or are you letting each bite register as a signal of safety, of being provided for? These small acts aren't neutral. They are micro-broadcasts, constant signals telling the field which station you're committed to. This is where embodiment matters most, because when you only hold coherence in rituals, you send a mixed message. The universe hears you in the morning, but by the afternoon your body is back to static. Reality mirrors the average of your signal, not the rare peaks. So integration means weaving coherence into the ordinary. Try this. When you walk, let your shoulders relax and your breath deepen. Imagine you're walking as the version of you who already has what you've asked for. Feel the ground carry you differently. That shift in posture is a broadcast. When you eat, pause before the first bite. Let gratitude settle, not as a forced thought, but as an embodied sense of, I am supported. Your body receives food differently in that state. Your frequency stabilizes differently too. Even in conversation, you can practice. Notice when you start shrinking, downplaying yourself, or over-explaining. Catch it. Take a slow breath. Speak as if you already trust your place here. That moment of coherence is a stronger signal than any vision board. The beauty is, daily life gives you endless opportunities to rehearse the station. You don't need extra hours or new tools. You just need awareness to notice where you're tuning. Integration is the difference between manifestation that collapses under stress and manifestation that becomes your new normal. And here's the deeper layer. When you live this way, coherence stops being something you do. It becomes who you are. That's when the field starts reflecting back not just small synchronicities, but entire shifts in relationships, health, creativity, and purpose. Because embodiment in the ordinary doesn't just tweak outcomes, it rewrites your life at scale. The question is, what happens when this frequency doesn't just touch one area, but begins expanding across every domain of your existence? When coherence stops being a practice and starts being an identity, it doesn't stay contained. It spills outward. It touches every domain of your life, sometimes in ways you didn't even think to ask for. Relationships shift first. When you carry safety in your body, people feel it. Conversations soften. Trust deepens. The version of you that used to chase validation suddenly radiates presence, and others tune to it without knowing why. The field mirrors back connections that feel more genuine, more aligned. Then creativity begins to unlock. When you're no longer burning energy on static, your mind clears. Ideas flow more freely. You're less afraid to act on them because your nervous system is no longer coded for fear of failure. You start living as someone who creates rather than someone who wishes they could create. Health also responds. The body listens to the frequency you hold. Chronic stress states create wear and tear, but coherence signals safety. The body heals, regulates, and balances differently when it feels safe to thrive. Sometimes the biggest manifestation isn't external at all. It's the return of vitality and purpose. This one sneaks up on you. The station of coherence doesn't just align you with outcomes, it aligns you with deeper currents of meaning. Opportunities arrive that match your identity. The people you meet, the projects you attract, the timing of events, they begin to weave into something that feels guided, as if the field itself is collaborating with you. Let's ground this with a scenario. Imagine a musician who's been stuck in a creative block. They sit with their guitar, but nothing flows. Their identity is tangled in fear. What if it's not good enough? What if no one cares? That frequency tunes them to a timeline where songs stall out. But when they shift into coherence, rehearsing the identity of, I am someone who channels music effortlessly, their body loosens. They strum differently. Ideas start to land, not because they forced them, but because they tune to the station where creativity flows. That energy ripples outward. The right collaborator calls, an unexpected opportunity appears, a song clicks into place. This is what happens when coherence expands. It's not linear, it's exponential. One shift in identity rearranges multiple stations at once. But here's where the leap gets truly profound. Beyond relationships, health, and purpose lies something bigger, a dimension that makes all of this make sense. To see it, you have to step past self-improvement and touch something much more mysterious, the intelligence of the field itself. Up until now, we've been talking about coherence as if it's simply a personal tool, something you use to change timelines, to shift identity, to reorganize your life. And that's true. But there's another layer, one that moves this whole conversation out of self-help and into something far deeper. Because when you tune the station, you're not just playing with your own frequency, you're aligning with a larger intelligence. Call it the quantum field, consciousness, the divine, life itself. It doesn't matter what name you give it. What matters is this. When you surrender into coherence, you're not bending reality. You're syncing with the rhythm that was always guiding you. This is where the paradox shows up. Most people think surrender is weakness, that if you stop pushing, you'll lose everything. But in truth, surrender is strength. Because it's only when you release the frantic grip of control that the field can deliver what was already waiting. Control is static. Surrender is precision. Think about it. You've had moments where you stopped fighting for something, and the moment you relaxed, it arrived. Not because you gave up, but because you got out of the way. You stopped jamming the signal with fear, and let the deeper current carry you. Here's the shocking part. This intelligence doesn't just reflect your desires. Sometimes it knows better than you. When you live in coherence, outcomes appear that your mind never would have scripted, but they feel inevitable once they land. The partner who shows up unexpectedly. The job you didn't apply for but fits perfectly. The timing that seems orchestrated. These aren't accidents. They're resonance. And this is where manifestation dissolves into something much bigger than getting what I want. It becomes about trust, about recognizing you are not the sole architect. You are a co-creator with the field itself. At that point, the work shifts from constant effort to listening, to asking, what station is life inviting me to tune into now? Sometimes it's abundance, sometimes it's healing, sometimes it's a deeper stillness you didn't know you needed. And each time you align, the field expands your reality in ways your mind could never have forced. That's the leap. You stop chasing outcomes and start living as resonance itself. And when you arrive there, the whole paradox collapses into one simple truth. You were never separate from the signal. You were always part of the music. Which brings us to the final step, pulling all of this into one powerful resolution, one image you'll never forget. Picture yourself holding that radio dial one last time. For years, maybe your hand has been shaking, trying to grip the knob, forcing it back and forth, desperate to land on the right station. You've strained, you've begged, you've chased, and all you've heard in return was static. But what if it was never about force? What if it was about stillness, the subtle art of tuning? One small turn, one breath of coherence, and suddenly the static clears. The music was always there, surrounding you, waiting for you to align. That's what quantum creation really is. Not chasing after the future, not proving yourself worthy, not outthinking the process. It's a homecoming. You're not creating something from nothing. You're remembering the frequency you already belong to. Every time you regulate your body, every time you embody safety, every time you let identity shift, you're sliding the dial closer. And then one day, it clicks. The song plays so clearly you can't believe you ever thought it was far away. And here's the part that humbles me. The simplicity of this process is the very reason it's so hard for the mind to accept. We've been conditioned to believe struggle equals worth, that only through effort do we earn results. But the field doesn't speak in effort. It speaks in resonance. It doesn't reward the loudest signal. It mirrors the truest one. So if there's one thing I want you to carry, it's this. Stop gripping the dial. Rest your hand. Listen, the station you've been searching for has been broadcasting the whole time. All you have to do is tune. And as you sit with that image, I'll leave you with this question. If the music has always been playing, what would happen if you finally allowed yourself to dance?